Yes, good morning, everyone. That was the voice of Ben Espinosa. I'm Joe Smoke. I'm the grants director. I'm going to lead you through hour of this paperwork and introduce you to this wonderful COLA program that my colleagues and I started 26 years ago. So here we go. So the grant program is for individual master artists. The city of Los Angeles sets aside a set of money to give what used to be called fellowships to artists, but has always really been a project grant. And we've added in recent years this cultural trailblazer category because there are so many wonderful artists that apply to the program that we use one panel to decide both of these programs. So the first thing we want to establish is that you're forecasting for us a solo project that you're going to produce in a defined period of time, which we're going to go over. The entire program, the mission is to qualify a spectrum of mid-career literary, performing, and visual design artists who are going to create that solo new work between the fall of 2024 and the spring of 2025. You will hold back that new work from any other exhibition because the city is buying the work to premiere it in a group exhibition and a catalog. The work belongs to you. It's your intellectual property. You can do whatever you want with it after we premiere it, but you must agree to hold back that new work from any other public presentation. We don't know our budget for next year, but we hope that we will be able to do a printed catalog. We've always established that. We hope also to be able to do an exhibition at the Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery for the Visual Design Fellows and a set of performance evenings at grand performances in downtown Los Angeles for the performing and literary fellows. The last thing that is in the sort of second paragraph of the introduction is just that we have different panelists every year. So we don't know who the panelists will be. We haven't selected them yet. You don't know. It's good for you to just set your mind to applying to this grant program multiple times. Because when the alignment happens between the goodness of your work and the 5 people on the other side, we don't know, you won't know, but the best thing to do is to see this as a very easy application and to remember to do it every October. I'm still on the introduction page, Ben, and I'm going to go with what we cannot support. This is not a program for interactive projects. It is not a program for collaborations unless you are a duo and you've been working together for 10 years and you're applying as a duo. And it's definitely not a program for site-specific installations. So please do not try in your project idea to devise some way of showing work somewhere else around Los Angeles. It doesn't work in this category. If your career as an artist has primarily been incubated in groups and you do interactive work and you are an artist who targets a specific population, we have other grant categories for you and we appreciate you applying in the right category. We have a category called NEAR, which stands for Neighborhood Engagement Artist Residency. It's a $12,000 grant for you to do 11 workshops and a culminating event. So if indeed COLA ends up not being the right category for you, move to NEAR. It's just as good. The last thing on the first page of the introduction is to draw your attention to the fact that our art centers have limited budgets. So we don't want you to propose work that is either difficult for you to produce or difficult for us to present. We say that projects that are pre-arranged in your studio that we can visit in advance and see what you're making are great. But if you're doing some unrestrained installation or a complicated performance that can't be rehearsed, it's probably not a good thing to apply to this program with that kind of idea. Because we have, again, a gallery space that has limitations and we may not be able to present your work in the end, which would be a shame for you to, go spend your time and resources on something that doesn't fit through the door at the gallery, can't get up the elevator. There's lots of limitations in a municipal art gallery. So I'm going to stop here at the end of the first page and ask, are there any duos in the room? Because I am going to make the comment several times that this is not a grant for people who primarily work in groups or work in pairs, unless you have been a pair and are applying together. Is there anyone in the room that's doing that?
I'm not seeing any hands up.
All right, then I won't have to stress that.
Okay.
So I'm on the second page of the introduction, Ben. I want to just draw attention to certain things, like the fact that the doors at the gallery are 12 feet tall and the elevator has a 12-foot maximum, and that if you are a performing artist, it's great if you want to make an epic evening of poetry, but we will only select 30 minutes of that for the group presentation, because you are ultimately in a group show, even though you're producing solo work. So please know in advance that we curate part of what you produce for the premiere. And then the last thing is that it's a $10,000 grant, but we want you to pay yourselves. So the project you're conceiving of in your head shouldn't be something that you can't produce on about $6,000, because you do need that $4,000 to pay yourself for your time, to pay for other additional expenses along the way. So please don't, dream big, take a risk and innovate, but don't propose something that's so unfeasible that the panelists are confused. Then, of course, we're going to go through in a little bit the requirements of how you apply. Images and videos, still images, still photographs, and video is primarily what people apply with. I'll tell you why in a moment, but you want to organize now the best work that you've done on digital images or video from the past 3 years, and you want to organize that probably from recent to less recent. And the only reason for you to go back to older work and show us 10 years of your history of making art is if you are pulling one particular theme or style or technique from the past and moving it forward. Otherwise, the panelists know from your resume that you have 10 years of experience. They don't want to see 10 years of work in your limited visual material. They just need to see where you're at in the last 2 or 3 years. And then the other thing we would encourage you to do is to get letters of recommendation from academics, curators, and colleagues. Very insightful letters are great. You'll see that the letter of recommendation is the last thing the panelist reads. It's the sort of an attachment at the end, a supplementary material. And so if you're attaching a letter of recommendation, please make it an exclamation point. That's really good. There's nothing worse than a lukewarm letter that you put on the end because you want to fulfill that obligation, but it's not a great letter and it doesn't say anything insightful about you. And then it's kind of wah, doesn't really end on a high note. So only make the panelists read what is additive. It adds quality to your proposal. It makes them feel excited. Anything else, leave it out. And that's it. No limitations on styles or genres. Every discipline is a thing unto itself. We'll go over that in a minute. You'll see that if you're a painter, you apply in visual design. If you're a poet, you apply in literary. If you're both, you have to choose because you can't put in more than one proposal. And there isn't a category for poetry with painting. So you have to decide what is your strongest discipline. I think I'll stop there, Ben. That's the end of the introduction, and I'll open for any quick questions about any of those things that have already happened.
There's a couple of questions regarding scale and site-specific works, Joe. The first question is, are applicants allowed to propose site-specific installations within LMAG?
No.
Or are they advised to stay away from site-specific concepts altogether? And secondly, can works suspended from the gallery ceiling be proposed?
Okay, no and no, and let me tell you why. One, we are our landlord at the Barnstall Park is Recreation and Parks. They're the department that takes care of the grounds. So we don't own the grass, we don't own the trees, we don't do anything on the sidewalks. So you really have to be prepared to showcase your work inside the gallery in a group show. If the curators need more space and you have an ingenious idea that they would agree with, then the curators at Lamag will help you sort of, do something that's in the core, in the foyer or something like that. But the answer is no. Can't propose to hang things in the trees outside because we don't own the trees. And the last thing is that the building is a very unusual civic art gallery. It is a cement structure built to reference Frank Lloyd Wright's Hollyhock House next door, and you cannot drill into the ceilings or the floors. It is a requirement of the structure of that building that you're not able to hang things that way. So do be prepared for those limitations in advance.
Excellent. And Joe, I responded to a question from a solo songwriter, singer and songwriter who is proposing a work that might include additional bandmates or accompanying artists. Any notes you'd like to share around how that can be proposed as an eligible project?
Yeah, so we'll cover that in a minute. Can I just punt that for a moment?
Sure.
We're going to go over that soon. All right, so Ben, let's turn to the framework page and give people a sense of the 5 things that they need to submit. So this grant is very easy. I know that artists are not often taught grant writing in school, but truly this is one of the easiest grants you'll ever apply for. It is an artist statement. It is a narrative about what you're going to produce. It's your resume, and you'll customize that for this opportunity. It's your work samples, which you should always have ready, and then it's the supplemental forms. So there isn't a lot of extraneous stuff here. We're a government agency. We try our best to pare things down, but we're not in control of, what's required in a request for proposals. The only other thing that's on this page that hasn't been mentioned yet is that the grant is dispersed to you in 4 installments. We'd love to be a wealthy foundation, and Ben could show up on your front porch with a $10,000 check, but that's not us. You will get $4,000 for signing a contract, and $3,000 for a site visit, and $2,000, I think $1,500 for your catalog materials, and then you have to be a part of the group show in the end to get the last bit of money. That is not because the city doesn't trust artists. It's because the city has a charter that says we're not allowed to pay for a civic service before it's been fully procured. So we're doing our best to make this like a fellowship for you as an artist, to pay you 3 times in advance. But honestly, most city contracts are the opposite, which is we hire you to plant trees, you buy the trees, you buy the soil, you dig the holes, you put in the trees, we come and inspect the trees, and then you get reimbursed. So know that we've done our best to make sure that you are front loaded to do your project. But the other jeopardy here that I'll tell you that's sort of hidden in those words is that if for whatever reason you don't finish your project and you don't participate in the catalog, you actually owe the city back all of the money. That's one of the jeopardies of a reimbursement program, which is, again, why we want you to dream, but dream within a reality that you can deliver. All right, Ben, I'm covered with that page. Let me go to eligibility because I want to make sure everyone knows what we're looking for here. So we're looking for professional master artists who have self-evolved ideas. You should not be a curator, a presenter, or interpreter of other artists' work. It's not allowed in this category that you present other artists, that you interpret other artists' work, or that you include other artists in your showcase unless they're playing a subsidiary role in a performance. So be prepared that we're looking for your self-evolved ideas that are unique to you. That is the reason why we match the resume with the artist samples. You will have a 15-year record on your resume, unless you're a dancer in the special field of dance, because of the nature of the physicality of it. We allow people to apply to the COLA program after 8 years of work. You're applying for a public program. The gallery is an open space for everyone. Wonderful if you want to target a specific audience of people and bring them to the gallery, but you have to understand that we're a public space that's open to everyone, including the neighborhood schools that come through the exhibition. You are submitting one proposal. That's the next bullet point here. One per person. Even if you're applying as a duo, it's one proposal. So please make sure that you select wisely of the category. There are 3 categories here for you. Design visual, you are choosing that set of panelists to be the primary reviewers of your work. If you are a literary artist in poetry or fiction, you are choosing that because those are the panelists you want to review your work, the first set. And if you are a performing artist, a choreographer who dances, a composer who plays their own music, or a one-person theatrical performing artist, or a multidisciplinary artist that, again, reads poetry and dances at the same time, then you will choose performing artist, because that is the set of panelists that will be the first reviewers of your work. The other 2 major eligibility points are that it's city money, City of Los Angeles. So you must live in the City of Los Angeles, or show us on your resume that you've shown 3 times within the City of Los Angeles, so you have some sort of presentation record in the City of LA. And again, the years to apply is not a barrier. It's simply because we're wonderful master artists in the city. We consider you a master after you have 15 years on your resume, and that can include any exhibitions, publications, or performances you did when you were a post-secondary student. So if you want to include your graduate show, your BFA, and your MFA shows in order to make the 15, that's fine. We're not looking for consecutive years on your resume, but quite honestly, you should look at your resume before you submit for this grant and make sure that the group or one-person shows go all the way back to 2005, 6, or 7, because that's the time period in which we're trying to count 15 years to make sure you meet that eligibility requirement. Again, if you're a dancer, it's 8, but for most people, it's 15. So think about structuring your resume so that we can read backwards from 2023 to 2022 to 2021, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, if it's not consecutive years, we understand that, but we're looking for at least 15 years of public presentations. Questions in the gallery, Ben? Should I stop at the end of this page now?
I have some pending questions regarding allowable project proposals, Joe, so I'll hold on those until you get to that section, but nothing regarding eligibility at the moment.
Okay, so please know that you are not eligible for this grant if you've already received a COLA fellowship. We have changed the name from COLA to fellowship to COLA-IMAP, and that does not indicate that it's a new grant category. This is a once-in-a-lifetime honor to be in this grant, to be a grant recipient here. A couple other eligibility questions. You should not be enrolled as a student during this period. There's rules against student artists, and this is one of those categories where we can't fund you if you're doing a degree or a certificate at the same time. If you are an artist that produces work as a hobby and it's not a serious profession, this may not be a category for you, because we receive a lot of proposals from very, very diligent artists. So just know, if you're a hobby artist, this may not be for you. And then again, if your resume is full of work that you sang with a band or you danced in a company, it may not qualify for the panelists, because they're really looking for somebody who has an individual representation as an artist. So if you're again, we understand that some art forms are more collaborative than others, and we understand that many times you will work in a group. But if you've had no experience ever before doing a solo work, I would say you should go have that experience before you apply. And the last thing is, we're required to say that it's not a grant that can remunerate anyone who works for the city. So Ben's not going to apply. I'm not going to apply. If you work for the city as a full-time person, a part-time person, or a commissioner of the city, I'm sorry, but it looks like a conflict of interest. So we would not ask you to apply to this category. Anything pop up in the chat that I should cover, Ben?
Yes, eligibility question, Joe. If here's a question: if some of the work on their resume covering 15 years is group work and not solo, how do you account for that?
Some is fine. Primarily, if you've been a musician for 15 years and you've been in a band for 15 years and you've had one solo show, again, then you're primarily a group artist. And this may not be an opportunity for you. Primarily means mostly, right? So 50% fine, 60% fine, 100% probably not fine.
Okay.
Any other questions that we should cover now, Ben?
I have two regarding eligible project types. Let me know when you're ready for those.
Yeah, let's get to the end, because I think that people may be under the impression that the project matters more than what they've already accomplished. 80% of your score is based on your resume and what you've already accomplished as an artist. A snappy project is as important as what you've already accomplished. So let's hold those things, because I do want people to understand that this is a grant given to people primarily because you've already achieved something that's recognizable, not because you have a project that's interesting. So let me go to the grant amount on this page and tell people we're aiming for $10,000. We have no idea how many we'll get. We hope it will be anywhere between 10 and 15 $10,000 grants. We don't know what our budget's like for next year, but we will fight for this category. I'll say it once again: if you're a composer, a musician composer, and you're going to compose new work, we would ask you to think about that you will be the key person on stage playing that music. Fine if you hire an unaffiliated set of people to play the rest of it. I'm Joe Smoke, and I'm going to do a quartet for trombone, and I can't play 4 trombones. I'll play the one in the middle. People will know I'm the fellow, and then 3 people will join me to play the other trombones. That's totally fine if the music composition requires that you add other artists. But the people who are doing group projects need to understand that comes out of your fellowship. So you'll be paying those artists to rehearse and perform. We don't have a separate set of money, which is, again, why we stress this is a grant for an individual to do a solo project. And the more you think about that, the more you can pay yourself. You will be legally contracted in the end. So again, for those of you already thinking this is too much paperwork, it's the least you'll ever get in a grant proposal. And trust me, there is paperwork coming, because the legal contract for the city also takes a half a day to understand. And we go through a whole group contracting with artists to help you understand that you're in a legal contract with your municipality. And we're going to do our best to coach you through the stuff that's hard. The paperwork that's hard, it does exist, but hopefully you won't consider this the hard part. All right, Ben, let's go to timeline on the next page in the peer process. The grant deadlines are there for you. We do want you to know that Ben and I are not the curators. We are the facilitators of the panel. We make sure that everyone listens to one another and shares their opinions, but we're a government agency, so it's a peer panel process. We're going to get together 5 to 10 artists, arts administrators, educators, arts enthusiasts, and other educated people from the field. We have questionnaires and resumes from which we gather information. We've worked with many people in the field. We will put together 3 teams, 2 teams, 1 team, whatever is necessary. They will represent the city. They'll be reflective of the city by gender and geography and cultural knowledge and expertise, and they will be scoring your proposals. They do make comments to us, but it's not a grant category where you get any feedback when you apply. There's just too many applications for us to stop and make written notes for every applicant. So again, apply, save your materials, apply again, save your materials, apply again, apply until you get it. And also know that this review process tells you what I already suggested, which is that 80 points that the panelists give you is already for what you've accomplished. It's a judgment of your resume, and it's a judgment of the samples that you send in. So please focus on that, on doing a great job telling us what you've already accomplished in your career and making your artist statement, because that is by and large the majority of the reason why people get the grant. And again, Ben can go to the next page and show you that you only get a maximum of 20 points for your project. It's the new work that you propose to do with new ideas or new methods, or the continuation of an advancement of an existing set of works. But again, it's not a project. The project is required in order for you to fulfill the city contract, but it's not a project category grant. It's a grant that's based on, you know, your mastery in the field. So the last thing that I think is important on that page is the middle paragraph, where it says, you know, you should be able to describe your new work in 2 paragraphs. You know, let's start with the one sentence. So one distinct sentence is always helpful for the panelists to understand. So imagine you're a panelist and you get 300 proposals to read. You're not going to want to read them in alphabetical order because it doesn't make sense. You're going to want to separate people into categories. So I'm going to do the painters, the photographers, the poets, the musicians, the dancers. So having one sentence up front that tells the panelists what you do and what category you fit into is the best way to begin your grant. I propose to produce and present one set of thematic paintings. I propose one set of abstract paintings. I propose to make 4 chapters of a new novel. I propose to make a 20-minute theater movement piece. I'm, you know, gonna musician composer, and I'm gonna compose 6 new songs with the hopes that 4 of them will make it to the final stage. Whatever it is, be really specific in your first sentence, because it's what the panelists need to put you in the right category to judge you. If your first set of sentences are confusing and they don't know what to do with you, then you end up getting read last when they're exhausted, rather than against the comparable set of people. So please think about that distinct sentence, and also think about the 2-paragraph thing of what you're going to produce. The project doesn't need to be more than 2 paragraphs, because we don't know what the world's going to be like in 2024 and 2025. And for you to have a framework of an idea is fine. It doesn't need to be, you know, it doesn't need to be ultra specific, because again, you're spending time dreaming about the part that only gets you 20 points, you know, rather than the more important part, which is what you've already accomplished and being proud of that. So I think I'll stop there, Ben, and I'll go for questions.
Sure. First one is regarding panel assignments. Will there be an equal distribution of designers versus visual artists on the design visual panel?
It depends on how many proposals we get, which is why later in the grant, we encourage you to tell your friends to apply. I have been doing this for 26 years now, and one of the things I noticed is that when lots of ceramic artists apply, then we see that, we get an expert on the panel that knows about that, and someone tends to get selected. When one person applies and they're the only filmmaker, it's a harder road because there's no comparison. The panelists have a hard time if there's just one filmmaker, right? So We don't know. We don't know because we don't know who's going to apply. So apply, tell your friends to apply, people who are in your network to apply, because quite honestly, the logic we have is that if there are lots of photographers, the panel is going to take notice and want to pick photographers. And if there's only one, they have a harder time convincing themselves to pick that one photographer. And again, that's just the luck of how it happens every year. You may apply this year and you may be the only ceramic artist, and then you apply next year and there's 25 of you. So Ben and I don't know, except for to tell people to apply and to be authentic.
I have a question, Joe, from Stacy, one of our participants, who's been invited to show in-progress work this spring. If it's a workshop, should this applicant avoid showing any iteration of this work if they plan to propose a project involving that work in progress?
She's showing this spring. It's before she's even going to hear from us. So Stacy and everyone, let's go back to the timeline. Ben, if you can flip back 2 pages, because you're applying to us now. We have our panels in the spring of 2024. We get a budget in April of 2024. We write you a letter saying whether you got the grant in July or August, and you contract with us next August. And then you would start producing work in September of 2024 for this grant, September or October. And that work that happens between September of 24 and February of 25 is what you would be putting in the COLA-IMAP show. Anything before that is irrelevant, and anything after that's irrelevant. How's that for an answer?
Okay, that's good. I have a number of questions from one of our attendees, Alex Arndt. So you have some detailed questions regarding your situation. I'll invite you to unmute yourself and present your question to Joe.
Hi, Ben. Thanks so much. And Joe, thank you. Yes, I'm the music artist who, sometimes hires performers to perform with me. I've been doing this for 15, 20 years. But I am I'm the creator, and this is my project. So I assume that this is going to go okay in presenting, but I just wanted to make sure when I'm applying, I would be allocating, or my hopes is to allocate the funding to recording studio time, music video, and promo fees. Is that acceptable?
Yeah. So again, we're going to be presenting you. So there's no reason for you to be spending money on a recording or doing anything, because we would, if you were the musician or one of the 2 musicians that's selected for this fellowship, and you produce a work that requires you to hire some other artists, we would be presenting you in a group evening at the Grand Performances stage at California Plaza in downtown Los Angeles. How you use the $4,000 or $6,000 that you pay yourself, what you do with that money is your choice. But we wouldn't be presenting a recording of you at Grand Performances. We're presenting you live, performing live for the audience with your backup group. So don't think about producing new work that's great, and know that it's our job to present the new work. You're not cutting a new album. You're not doing anything like that. Later, you own the work and you can do that. You can take yourself and your musicians into the studio and record a final cut of that and put it on your next disc. But for us, it's a public presentation.
Okay, I got you. Understandable. And is there any place on the application where I have to express the intent for the funding? And just want to know, no. Okay.
No, we've, in many grants, you'd be required to present a budget, but we don't ask you for that because, again, we don't know the prices of things. You don't know the prices of things. We hope inflation goes down. We're not asking you for a budget. But we're asking you to dream within $10,000. So,
okay.
So dream within the box.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe.
Where are we going next, Ben?
Those are the questions so far, Joe. That's it.
All right, so let's go to application instructions. Ben, if you can jump forward. I just want to make sure people understand that there's a cover page, there's your narrative, which is your qualifications, your practice. We have lots of different styles of narratives you can choose to write: first person, third person, interview style, however you want to present yourself to the panel. Resume, please make sure you highlight the 15 years for us, because again, we like to count backwards. 2022, 21, 20, 19, be able to like go back and count 15 boxes. If you have a really long lag time in your career, we understand a lot of people didn't do a lot during COVID. That's understandable. Everyone's resume will be thin for those years. But if you took 7 years off and started a family, or you changed careers and came back, and there's a big gap, you might want to address that in your narrative to the panelists. If that's been really recent, like you just, took 7 years off of your career, the panelists are going to have some serious questions about whether this is the right grant for you. Artistic work samples is covered on this page. I will tell you that video is the best choice for all the performing artists. Please do not spend a lot of time giving us digital images. If you're an artist that makes music or dance or theater, we absolutely need the video clips from you. Audio tracks is fine for music, but it's not the best because the panel doesn't get to see you. They don't get to see your costume. They don't get to see your style. They don't get to see how you interact with an audience. So audio track is the third best choice. Ben, if you want to go to the next page. Published materials, again, not a great choice, even for literary artists. Most literary artists apply to this program with maybe some printed material, but mostly with a video of them performing their poetry. Again, the panelists learn a lot by seeing someone present. If you're not a performance poet at all, published material is fine. And then the first best choice for visual design artists is almost always digital images, 10 of them, good JPEGs that we can see them. Titles, if you want to include them in a PowerPoint, it's fine for us. If we can, we will also read them out loud, your titles, as long as they're not very long. And a title is just a title. We just need the title, the dimensions, and the materials. We don't need you to tell us why you made the work. So captions are not welcome. So first best choice is digital images or video. Second best choice might be published material if you're a printed poet who doesn't perform their work. And then again, audio files is kind of like the second best choice for musicians. I guess I'll cover these next couple of things here so we can finish this page, Ben, and that is just, the electronic submission date is here for you. It's Monday, November the 6th. And actually, that's on the next page, Ben. Let's stop. I'm a page ahead. Let's stop and ask questions, and then we'll go to the next page, Ben.
I have some questions here, Joe, regarding providing applications, work samples. Can visuals for visual artwork be in one PowerPoint presentation? I may take that. Let me take that one, Joe.
Yeah.
My response would be yes, that's doable. One of the ways we'll cover you can upload and share work samples is through 3 hyperlinks. If you are packaging a curated set of images on a PowerPoint to be viewed via a clickable link, that can be one way of sharing your work.
Yeah. We're in a room, we're moving as fast as possible to show your work. So the least complicated you make it for us to get your visuals up and running, the better. So Ben, thank you for answering that question. Any other ones about what to submit and how?
Not at the moment. I had some questions regarding catalog exhibition essays and how that can serve as a good supplementary item to upload. Generally speaking, Joe, do you have recommendations for great supplementary items folks should upload?
Yeah, let's go over that. So the best thing is a one-page letter, quite honestly, because you're applying, you want to find somebody who is at the same level as the average panelist for this grant. And, an academic, a curator, a person who's important in the field, and for them to add value to your proposal. If you send them your narrative and they just quote from your narrative, then it's not supplementary. It doesn't add anything to the grant because they're just saying exactly what you said in your proposal. So please steer away from stuff that doesn't add value. The panelists are reading a lot of material and they don't need to read redundant material. If you prefer to not have a letter of recommendation and you have an important essay that's written about you in the last 3 years, then include that. The dilemma there is that if it's very long, the panelists may only choose to read the first page of it. So please understand that the panelists are under no obligation to read long supplementary material. So if I had a museum exhibition about my work and someone wrote a 4-page essay about me, that's in the monograph that I was lucky to get out of that one-person show, I would double-side it and I would go with a highlighter and I would highlight the parts that I want them to read, that they shouldn't miss reading about me, because it's where the curator at that museum said the most brilliant things about me. I would not make them read the 4 pages and search for the jewels on their own, because they are reading 300 proposals.
Yep. And a follow-up question, Joe. I know we encourage folks to upload recent supplementary materials. How much you define recent? What might be too old?
I think if you are sending us stuff that's older than 3 years ago, there has to be a good reason why. Again, if you are an abstract painter and you're returning to your love of pink, which you put aside 10 years ago, and you want to show us 2 pink works from 5 years, from 10 years ago, then show us 8 current paintings. And then the last 2 are the pink ones from 10 years ago. But by and large, the panelists want to know where you're at today. They're not looking at your sample materials to learn what you did over 10 years. It's the wrong place to put that history. So consider each part proposal as a thing unto itself. The 15 years of mastery happens in the resume. The images dazzle them with where you're at today as an active, engaged artist, and the project proposal says where you might go with your talent. They're related, but they shouldn't cross over. That's my best advice.
Okay. Do you think, Joe, a panelist might be sensitive to how COVID might have affected the recency of some submitted works in these last 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, even on the staff, when we count shows, year by year to count up to 15, we'll be surprised, if people were in 2 online exhibitions in 21 and 2020. It's just, there was, the world stopped. We understand that everyone has the same deficit there.
Great. How about this, Joe? As a visual artist making work with both moving image and other work that is not video, is it best to use all 3 links for video work samples, or just to use one of the 3 links for an artist website that shows an overview of images?
Artists, we don't want to see your website. Don't send people on a tour and have them click on things that you don't want to represent you. So the answer is, do not send us to your website. The answer is, figure out how to represent yourself best with 10 things. They can be, 2 video clips, and if you make an immersive installation, 4 picture, digital images of each of those installations, so they get a sense of the feeling of walking through the space. But you've got to figure out how to make it work that the panelists see exactly what you want them to see, and not they don't want to go on a click journey and not know what they're seeing.
Okay. All right. I have a question from Marissa here. Are we allowed to submit both JPEGs and video links this year? Or is it still just either or? Marissa, I'm about to walk through the application, and you'll see that you can upload either 10 still images or 3 hyperlinks. And there is a way to accomplish submitting both JPEGs and video links via the links. And if you hold tight, we can go over that together.
So before I hand the microphone to Ben to go over the technical things, I just want to make sure everyone sees this very important thing here under submit, and that is that you're submitting to us electronically on Monday, November the 6th, but we ask that you also print a copy and send it to us. Step number 3, Ben, is submitting a hard copy of your proposal. If you want to run the cursor over that part 2 there that says, send us a hard copy. Believe it or not, we live in a world where things go missing, and it is not a surprise to us when we see a digital application and we don't get a hard copy. We understand you skipped that step by mistake. When we get a hard copy in the mail and we go to the digital inbox and we don't find your original submission, then we know something went wrong with your technical ability with our platform, and we will call you and fix it. So the submitting a hard copy to us on November the 13th is the way that you absolutely confirm with us that you intend to apply. And frankly, we don't own our platform. We don't control if it goes down. So it's really great for us to have hard copies, because if there was ever an emergency and the platform went down, we're only a subscriber. We do not want to lose your proposal. So we would then have to go with the hard copies we have and go back to Xeroxing them and delivering them to panelists to read. So please help us avoid a crisis by sending us that hard copy. It's important for us to have. Probably important for you to have as well. One of the things we learn year after year is that people apply to a grant, they come back the next year, they apply again, they don't remember their password, they can't find nothing exists in the system. So at least having a hard copy would give you something to model your next proposal on, versus, having to start all over again. All right, Ben, I think that's it for me. I think I'm going to leave you with this wonderful crew and have them walk through the platform.
Great. All right, folks. So in this next section, we're going to go over the SurveyMonkey Apply platform. So give me one moment. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And the first place to start, of course, is our main guidelines page where you registered for today's workshop. You can access SurveyMonkey Apply by clicking on the applying link, clicking on the instructions, and then prepare and submit. Here's the link to SurveyMonkey Apply. I hope this page looks familiar to you. If you haven't seen this before, the very first thing you're going to want to do is to register for a new account. And you can do that by clicking on the green register button in the upper right-hand corner there. Make sure to register yourself as an individual artist, as the COLA program is open only to individual artists, not organizations. After you've created an account, you should be able to then log in. If you log into your account, click on that button. It'll take you to a main dashboard where you can now click on the programs that are available from DCA. The one we're talking about today is the COLA Individual Master Artist Project Grant. Click on that green More button. You should see a green Apply button here. But since I've already started one, and you're only limited to one proposal, it won't let you start a second one. So we can look at my in-process proposal together as an example of what we can expect to see. If you've applied for DCA grants in the past, you'll notice that this is one of the shortest list of things to submit. As Joe mentioned earlier, this is one of our easiest grant programs that we have available, that we make very minor changes to every year, with the hopes that it facilitates repeat applications, given the very competitive nature of this program. So if you're coming back to us from having applied from last year, you'll be pleasantly surprised to see the expectations, requirements are very much the same. Just update your resume, update your supplementary items and so forth to make sure it's a fresh submission for refresh consideration by our new panel. So when you start a new proposal, you'll see that SurveyMonkey Apply presents to you what is essentially a task list. Think of this as your checklist of things to do before you can click on the green submit button to us. The COLA application consists of 5 main components. The first one is the biggest and beefiest portion. It's the proposal element. We'll jump into it quickly and momentarily. We'll ask for a resume, the work samples, supplementary items. That's it. And there's an optional feedback form we always invite our applicants to fill out for us, share feedback to help us improve this process. Every year, we try to make it easier and more transparent and accessible for all applicants each year we run it. SurveyMonkey Apply shows your progress using these little icons on the left-hand side of each task. Something with this like half moon icon shows that you've started this step but haven't quite marked it complete. Green check mark indicates something you've completed, and a gray circle means something you have yet to do but is required to do. So let's jump into the proposal component, and we'll highlight all the important elements we'll ask you to provide to us. COLA proposal consists of 3 pages. The first one, let me get us to the first page. And this is a great way of highlighting how you navigate through pages on SurveyMonkey Apply. There's a previous and next button in the bottom. First page of the proposal, basic information about yourself. Give us your legal name. If you have a professional stage name, include that as well. Give us both your residential and mailing address, understanding it's oftentimes the same. One of the first checks we do as a staff is to make sure you are a resident in Los Angeles County, as that's one of the requirements for this program. Give us your main contact information, double check its accuracy. This is the primary way you'll be hearing back from us in several months around the status of your application. And then a very long preamble, and that we ask for you to read and to check off, because we want to avoid many of the typical pitfalls we see when we see artists come to us who are proposing non-solo work. They're proposing non-feasible, non-realistic projects that can't be created with $6,000 or $7,000 in expenses. We want you to make sure that if you are a multidisciplinary artist, you're kind of like selecting which of the COLA categories you would best fit in that best represent your practice. So we want you to understand these are the limitations of this solo work grant program. So make sure to read those 4 requirements there, and then check an acknowledge button there. Click that box, and then select for us which of our 5 categories you fit in. And so visual design artists, these are our graphic designers, product designers, painters, sculptors. Vast majority of our applications fall under this category, but we're also interested in hearing from applicants in our literary arts. So if you're a poet, fiction writer, performing artists, solo musician, performing artists, choreographer, dancers, and performing artists, playwright, actors. Select the option that best reflects your work, and then select for us the council district that your home is in. If you're within the city of Los Angeles, if you're in the city of LA, you're going to be in one of 15 council districts, and you can make that determination by using this neighborhood info tool. You open that up, you punch in your address. If you're within the city of LA, it'll give you your council member that represents you. If, for example, you're not in the city of LA, like you're in Santa Monica, Culver City, West Hollywood, Altadena, you can also select that box and let us know whereabouts Los Angeles County you reside. That's also allowable and eligible for this grant program. Give us a quick note about your specialization within your specific field. If you're a visual designer, indicate for us if you're a photographer, if you engage in ceramics, or you do sculpture. Helps panelists kind of organize their review of applicants if you just give them a very quick specialization. And then you have 3 or 5 sentences here to embellish on that specialization, to tell us about an extra sentence or 2 about what you do within that field. Further helps our panelists organize their review of our applicants. Ask for a signature, just attesting to the accuracy and truthfulness of your proposal. You can sign that with your mouse or trackpad. And then we get into the beefy part of the proposal, where you introduce yourself to the panelists through your introductory text and statement. Again, many ways to go about this. You can go about this as a first-person narrative, interview style. You can be funny, you can be serious, something that's reflective of your personality or practice. You want to introduce yourself, your practice, and to the panelists through your voice, through outside voices, through critical perspectives, so that the panelists understand who you are, where you're coming from, and where you expect to go in your artistic trajectory. And again, a very long preamble before you go into the next part of your proposal, which is the description of your proposed project. I'll emphasize again the distribution of our evaluation. Remember, this is an award primarily meant to honor those artists who've already have a great body of accomplishment and work presented. 80% of your evaluation is based on what you've already done. So lean heavily on this very first narrative response about where you're introducing yourself, your experience, and your practice. The 20% remaining is about this proposed project. And so we have a very long preamble here, again, just to remind you what can be acceptable. Projects are often disqualified right off the bat because they're proposing a site-specific work taking place in Santa Monica Beach, or it's a very large opera production involving hundreds of people. These are not allowable projects to be proposed under the COLA program. So all of this bold text is just to remind you what you should be thinking about. And as Joe mentioned earlier, start off your narrative about your proposed project with something very simple first sentence saying, I propose to produce one set of new thematic artworks. I propose to compose 3 chapters of a new novel I've been working on. You can also propose, 1 or 2 or 3 new works of music as part of a large opera production you're conceiving. A very first statement that makes it very clear for the panelists what exactly you're proposing to do with $6,000 or $7,000 in project expenses. First sentence very clearly stating what you're planning to do, and then add 2 or 3 more paragraphs after that, outlining the detail of it, the scale and scope, maybe a brief summary of your planned production process, just to emphasize for the panelists that you're envisioning something that's realistic and feasible given the constraints of the COLA grant. And once you've included those 2 narrative responses, you can mark your proposal as complete. And that should be the hardest part of this grant proposal. If you go back to your application, you can then see the remaining things to do. The resume, pretty straightforward here, just the things to call out, the things we talked about already. Make sure this demonstrates at least 15 years of professional experience, 8 years if you're a dancer choreographer, and it has to be experience that emphasizes solo work. If you go through this process, if you take a look at your CV and you're a band member, you're a drummer for various ensembles throughout 15 years, you may not be viewed primarily as a solo artist based on that resume. So make sure to craft a resume to show the staff who will be reviewing it first that you've met the minimum eligibility requirement of being a solo artist with 15 years or 8 years if you're a dancer choreographer of experience. In the instance where you don't have an LA County-based residence address, very important that your resume showcases at least 3 years of presenting experience within the city of LA, so we can establish that geographic link to you as an LA-based artist. Upload your resume here. There's no page limitation on here, so feel free to brag about yourself and your past experience, showcasing and establishing yourself as a master artist. Next requirement, of course, are artistic work samples. And so we'll think of our panelists who will be reviewing hundreds of these proposals. Will have read many artist statements, many project narratives, showcasing your work in visual media will be a relief for our panelists. So make sure that you can delight the panelists with and to showcase work that represents your practice and kind of aligns with your narrative and sets your case up as a really great candidate for receiving a $10,000 grant to advance your work into the next stage. So 2 ways of showcasing your artistic works. You can either provide 3 hyperlinks, 3 creative links to whatever you want them to link to. It can be a YouTube video, it can be a Vimeo link, it can be to a Google Drive with a curated set of images, it can be to a Google PowerPoint with a curated set of images. Just be very thoughtful about this. We encourage our panelists to spend no more than around up to 10 minutes per applicant of reviewing their artistic samples all together. So be thoughtful about those minutes, those precious minutes our panelists have dedicated for you. As Joe mentioned, it's not a good idea to send them simply a link to your website, because that may not necessarily it may not necessarily show to the panelists what you want to represent for yourself for the purpose of this grant program. If you're going to do the link route, you select that box, you mark next. You'll be prompted with with an indication of how many links you want to provide. Let's just say for this example, I'll just do 1. You put in a hyperlink here. And then do utilize this brief narrative box to share a quick note to the panelists, give them a heads up of what they're clicking on. This is a link to a video presentation of your last concert series at somewhere in Los Angeles. If you're going to provide a password protected link, this is also a place where you want to ensure that there's a password the panelists can access. Ideally, if you can provide a link without a password, that would be better. Anything to make it easier for the panelists to access your work is certainly encouraged. And also remember, you're submitting this proposal, now. Panelists will probably not be clicking through these links until the January-February timeframe. So make sure you're providing a link here that will be active and accessible throughout in these next 3 to 4 months. Okay. Okay. So we had some questions earlier around how I can be strategic in showcasing both a series of still images and video links. This is the way to do it. Your first link can be a link to a YouTube or Vimeo link. Your second link can be to a Google Drive, iCloud, or Dropbox link with a curated set of images. That way you can showcase both formats to panelists. But again, don't get carried away with sharing too much information or too much content, as panelists, as I mentioned, will not spend more than 10 minutes per artist reviewing artistic samples. Okay, and once you've uploaded your content there, you can mark that as complete. If you're going to go the route of including 10 still images, a very popular way of sharing content, especially among our visual artists, you'll upload a very high resolution image of your a file of your image, and you can include there's a text box beneath each upload where you can add a very brief caption, title, media, size and dimensions, etc. All right, next item, supplemental items. Very important component. These are optional uploads, but as a reminder, 80% of your evaluation is based on what people have to say about you, what you've already accomplished, what you've already experienced. So including outside voices to substantiate your quality as a master artist is super important. So this is, as Joe mentioned, these are critical reviews, excerpts from essays about your work, interviews with you, other outside voices that really substantiate your status as a master artist. Take advantage of each of these 3 uploads. And when uploading your file, use this very brief narrative space to just introduce the work introduce the piece to the panelists. So letter of recommendation from such and such, dated whatever. Second letter of recommendation. This could be an excerpt from an essay. This could be a review in a newspaper about your recent exhibition. Just give a brief description of what it is the panelist is about to upload. Once you've uploaded those 3 items, you can mark that as complete. We have a question here from Sue regarding how to combine 2 one-minute videos in a series of JPEGs. I'm assuming that's with regards to your artistic samples. So if you go back to the artistic work sample section, the way to do this, Sue, would be to share your artistic documentation via links. So select the links option. So when you share links, you can provide up to 3. Let's say you want to do 2 1-minute videos. Great. So you're going to do 3 links. Select 3 links. So your first link will be a link to the first Vimeo link. Add that direct link to the Vimeo link and add a quick description of what that link would be. You can add a second link here to the second video. Let's say it's a YouTube link. Add the YouTube link here. Quick note to the panelists of what that they're about to click into. Now your third link, you need to be creative here. Where is it you want to share those series of JPEGs? Is it going to be a Google Drive folder? Is it going to be an iCloud folder? Is it going to be a Dropbox folder where you have 10 curated sets of curated images? You decide where those images live in the cloud, and that the link to that location is what you're going to add here. And as I mentioned earlier, try to avoid any password protections if you can. If you insist on it, you can add password and login credentials in the text box here. Does that answer your question, Sue?
And Ben, please make sure that folks realize that if you submitted 2 videos, you would only get 8 more images, correct? To meet the total of 10. You wouldn't be doing 10 plus other things.
Yes, those are great guidelines, Joe. Be thoughtful. Most our applicants are providing 10 work samples, 10 images or videos. So again, think about how you're distributing your videos and images so that you're still fitting within those guidelines.
10 items. Thank you.
All right, so onward we go. We've uploaded our supplemental items. I've completed an optional feedback form for the DCA staff. Panelists will not see that. They will only see the first 4 items marked here in your proposal. Once you've got those requisite check marks, you will now see a green submit button here. If you click on that submit button, it'll prompt you to give your content one last review. And it is a good reminder. We encourage applicants to use like Microsoft Word to prepare your narrative responses so you can take advantage of spell check, grammar check, those copy editing tools. Importantly, word and character counts, because when you copy and paste them into the proposal itself, you'll notice there is where is that?
69 word count or something like that, Ben.
Something like that. So you want to avoid the pitfall where you're copy pasting a response into the box and it's inadvertently truncated because you've somehow exceeded the word count. Be mindful of that. Check for those things. Check the files that you've uploaded to make sure that what it is you uploaded is indeed what you had intended it to be. You don't want to have uploaded what you thought might have been an essay about your work and it was like last week's grocery shopping list, by example, because it was saved in your desktop. Check for those files, make sure it's exactly what you want it to be. Check your artistic samples that, these are the works that you feel like best represent you. They're uploading successfully, the passwords work, and so forth. Once you're satisfied with all of that, you can click on the green submit button and you'll get a confirmation that it has been submitted successfully. You'll as well get an automatically generated email from DCA confirming receipt of the application. And that in that email, it will have instructions for you about how to go back to your application and view it and to download a PDF of it. So you can print that in hard copy back to back and then mail it to us. So you'll have those instructions for completing the hard copy submission portion via email after submitting your online submission. Okay, I will stop there. I hope that's a helpful overview of what you can expect on the SurveyMonkey Apply side of this. We'll pause here one last time for questions for Joe and or myself. Not seeing any, which is amazing.
People want to go outside, Ben.
I think so. That's a beautiful day.
I'll make some closing comments because after people go through the technology, they might lose focus a little bit. So I want to just say again, recent work, put the best things first. Assume that the panelists want clear and concise rather than long and verbose. Don't fill up every item if you don't have to. They're reading. So please avoid that idea that you have to say more to get the grant. Sometimes, again, shorter is better. Put the best work first. Make sure that they are wowed right out of the box. Even if that's something from a year ago, and then you can go to last month. But I always think you need to put the best things first. And when you choose 3 links, think about those as tiered links. You know, the panelists aren't going to read from link 3 to 1. They're going to read from 1 to 3. So you want to make sure that they get the, you know, fall off their chair with excitement after the first couple of things that they see. That's the best methodology. And the same advice to you at the end in the supplementary materials. We allow you to do 3, but 1 is perfectly fine. If you got 1 super hot letter, then give us the super hot letter. Do not give us the 2 lukewarm letters just because you thought, you know, some academic gave you their time. If they don't write a good letter, don't attach it, because it's not an exclamation point unless it's an exclamation point. Ben, back to you.
Yeah, 2 final questions, Joe. If my most recent show is a new iteration of an older installation, is that worth including?
If it matches, you know, yeah. I mean, again, the panel wants to see where you're at today. So go ahead. I mean, I think there's no way to avoid that because we want to see your recent work.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question here as well. Recommendations for image quality, size, and resolution. I can take this one. If you'll see in the work sample section of proposal, there is a recommended resolution when uploading still images. Remember, panelists will be reviewing this on their laptops or computers, so you want to put something that will present nicely in the computer setting. When we gather in a panel together, we'll be projecting images on a large, like, boardroom size screen. So you want to upload images that will lend itself well to that kind of setting. If you're photographing an artwork with a very important, like, close-up detail, not a bad idea to include 1 image from further back and 1 zoomed in so that panelists can appreciate the level of detail you want to exhibit. Okay. Wonderful, folks. Well, thank you for taking some time this morning to talk about the COLA grant program. Our aim is to upload a recording of this as well on the DCA website, on the guidelines, if you want to reference something we spoke about earlier. But thank you again. We wishing you the best luck for this, for your submission. Look forward to receiving it.
Thank you so much. This was really helpful.
All right.
Great. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much.